everyone, Pineaaronapple here, back with the next box set in the 9th Doctor Adventures range of Doctor Who by Big Finish, the start of Series 3, Pioneers. This box set lives up to its name, not only in being the next of the 9th Doctor Adventures, but each being set around the idea of a pioneer, in concept and execution. The three stories we will be talking about today are The Green Gift, Northern Lights, and The Beautiful Game. Last time we took a look at this range, we saw some great stories, but rating for those box sets were at the low end of the spectrum, while still great, and not accounting for my personal biases. These sets seem to be having more average or stranger stories that are harder to get into. Let's see if this set can break new ground, or if it will follow the current trend. Spoilers ahead. The first episode of this new season is The Green Gift, written by Roy Gill. An episode that seemed to bounce between the points of surprising and predictable, as if its name were Barry Allen.
I'm the fastest man alive.
Carrying on from Red Darkness, the previous series finale, Cullen and Doyle, who were a boy and talking dog duo that the Doctor saved, have travelled with him for some time, and the Doctor is looking for a suitable place to drop them off, where they can live happily. First notch on the surprise scale, I honestly was thinking they would disappear off screen and that we wouldn't see them again. Maybe the Doctor would mention them and go, "Oh, I dropped them off somewhere." But they actually get a send-off story and are good here. Another few surprises appeared that we will touch on later, but then comes the formulaic bits. When giant maggots are introduced, it is, of course, Boss that is behind the trouble. As if the big, red, round circle on the cover wasn't a tip-off, and the Doctor mouths off to it about their conflicting ideals. And considering how vocal Christopher Eccleston is on social topics,
and I hope the planet turns round and shits on you,
I'm sure he had fun with this. The people of the Legacy ship that are carrying all this greenery for terraforming Earth are freed from Boss's control and ideals, and decide to make planetfall on a nearby habitable planet, to terraform with all of Earth's lost plants. Although, I suppose this explains why Orphan 55 was so barren. Billy! And finally, the story ends on a fun note, as the girl with her dog that Cullen is totally not hot for, her dog is secretly given a translation collar like Doyle's. Now, let's talk about the primary cast. Christopher Eccleston is as good as usual here, but I felt like the material really let his performance shine better than usual. As I said before, I believe that parts of the context may have appealed to either the performers or the writers more than usual, allowing greater fluidity and quality. Cullen is reprised by Adam Martin, and I think I preferred him here to in Red Darkness. He got a lot less of his whiny teenageness here than last time, making it a more pleasant experience, even if the bond that he gains with the gender-bent love interest Tay is a little predictable to not only us but the Doctor as well, which does slightly alleviate the monotonous feeling one might get in this situation. Doyle is again played by Harky Barbara, and is as great as he was last time, snarky yet having a clear emotional connection with Cullen. I guess the Doctor Who just has a great track record with dogs plus technology. Tay, who is basically a palette swap of Cullen, was fine. Not a very impactful character, but Madison Bulliman did fine in their performance. No issues, but unfortunately, not many outstanding qualities either. Finally, while Boss was well written and well acted, he was just an AI rattling off evil ideas, where the key personality and horror of the controlling AI idea shine is in the performance of Fiacra, played by Louise Jameson, known for playing 4th Doctor companion Leela. But she did well, even when it was obvious where a character was going with the whole AI connection and mentioned veto system in the episode. But it was honestly a little jarring hearing her voice for the first time as her character is introduced. Maybe not being sure if it was this new character or maybe Leela was coming back. So overall, it was a good episode, even if it had its problems. But I'm not sure if I can call it as strong an opening as either Sphere of Freedom or Station to Station. And while I liked the callback to the Green Death with Boss and everything, it was quite an unnecessary detail to have in the plot. It could have done well without the connection to the Green Death. It also did well to give a farewell to Cullen and Doyle, who, even if we haven't had a lot of experience with them, did seem as if they had known the Doctor for a while at this point, making the goodbye far more impactful than it would have been if the story took place directly after Red Darkness. I'll give The Green Gift a 6.5 out of 10. A lot that I liked, but also a lot that felt as if it were towing the status quo. Not bad, just not amazing. Yet, I can't dodge the fact that there were bits of quality in here. Next in the box set is Northern Lights, written by Robert Valentine, and while I think it is the best in this set, it is quite an odd one. Very deceptive in what it is. The Doctor ends up finding an expedition run by the real-life Norwegian polar explorers, who I'm not going to try and pronounce the names of, so let's call them Nansen and Johansson. This story has a mystery, a villain who is interesting, and a good cast, but none of that is what it's about. In actuality, the focus is on Nansen, who has actually done much in his life if the Doctor's ramblings and his Wikipedia page are to be believed. The story even tricks you by resolving the alien threat far earlier than usual, and spending the last portion of the story on Nansen's future, even having a wonderful scene at the end between him and the Doctor. This strange tone almost put me off, but I loved both parts of the story. Both the usual alien fighting that, for once, is actually resolved peacefully, and also in the historical focus that takes us to Nansen even when the Doctor is gone, as he usually runs after defeating the Menace. Although this elevates it past the other two stories in the set, I can see how easily this might aggravate or confuse some viewers enough that they may not appreciate the experience. But for me, it definitely worked, so I'll rate it appropriately. To the characters, we have less than in the last story, but that does give us the bonus of more time for each of them. The Doctor is good here as usual. His fanboyishness oversharing is akin to when he spent time with Charles Dickens, and much in line with not only Nine's character, but the Doctor in general. And the performance is paired well. Ian Cunningham as Nansen is certainly the most interesting of the Explorer pair, and the character is explored throughout the writing very well. It certainly felt as if the writer enjoyed and was actually interested in them, and the performance matches that energy. Jared Carnes, if I'm pronouncing that right, played Johansson, and while not as interesting as Nansen, the writing and acting were fine. Just a little forgettable to me. So, not much for me to input there, but certainly not a major con. Finally is the alien antagonist force of the story, the Aurora, played by Jinia Chang. It is an interesting villain to say the least. Certainly not like many of our usual suspects, but there are two things about the Aurora that really shine. The first is the performance. Its many voices and collective one meshing together quite well. But the other great aspect is the parallel between it and the Explorers. Not only is the Aurora described as looking a lot like the Aurora Borealis in one of its forms, but its function is an academic, and its plight as a survivalist are both interesting as a diversion from the usual Doctor Who boogeyman, but also as an understandable mirror to the story's focus, Nansen. So this story, while I can easily see why people might not gel with it, was a blast for me, and was not only my favourite from the box set, but also the most interesting of the three, with a great historical aspect, an interesting villain type not usually explored, and a story that defies expectation, while still delivering a good story with acting, writing, and ideas to match. I'll give Northern Lights by Robert Valentine an 8 out of 10. Finally, we have a real strange story, The Beautiful Game. But does that make it bad? In this story, the Doctor goes back in time to see a very important part in football history. Too bad I don't give a shit about sports. Yeah, so while this story was of good quality, and introduced and talked on social issues in great ways, much like the recent 8th Doctor story Albie's Angels, The Beautiful Game has this focus on football, as I will call it for this review, even if it's really called soccer. And that is something that doesn't interest me at all. But everything else in the story does, such as speaking on the importance of the suffragette movement, which, through a pretty heartbreaking example, without falling into the trap of making every man the personification of evil to make the woman look better. the mistakes of the bias of the time leading to the death of a young woman. We also have a villain here called a strike, which, while not an amazing concept, an obsessive species that seek to keep all aspects of its obsession close, even if it means eating them, is dealt with in a clever way, and is a great reflection of not only the idea of fans gatekeeping, something that appears in both sports fans and the Doctor Who fandom itself, but also how destructive an obsession could be. While this story has a far clearer focus than the last, unfortunately that focus didn't interest me much. But there are still clear signs of quality I see. Now, let's talk characters. The Doctor is a little different here, and I can't tell if his childlike wonder and enthusiasm towards football is really in character, or really not. But either way, I can't say anything bad about the performance. Christopher Eccleston really does the best he can with what he's given, even if the material is strange. Rachel Fenwick plays Daphne, our pseudo-companion, who, to me, someone who has no interest in football, takes the focus of the story as it tries to juggle its interest in both sport and the message of equality. She puts in a great performance, and although the character is hesitant and avoidant at the start, she is great throughout the majority of the story, her emotional scenes really working for me. The last memorable character would be Raymond Coulthard, playing real-life sportsman William Sudell. And he takes one of the, but not the most egregious, roles that amount towards the social message, almost outright refusing to listen to Daphne based on her gender, but once she puts a boot up his arse, reluctantly follows. So, while not totally surprising, it was nice to see a character with prejudice like this be more than one-dimensional. And lastly, the villain, the Strike, played by Becky Wright, who also plays an unfortunate side character. This was fine. As I said before, this story, while good, was all over the place in interest, tone, and focus. So while a lot of the single aspects were good, the meshing of those tones loses some points. But the idea and the way they deal with the villain were quite imaginative, if stranger than the usual villains. So, this episode, much like the last two, were a little strange with a lot of pros and cons. But while I believe it has something for everyone, I don't think that it will be everyone's cup of tea, much like the last story. Fortunately, I am one of those who got a lot from this, even if it has its problems and some focuses that I don't care for. So I'll give The Beautiful Game by Catherine Armitage a conflicted 7 out of 10, leaving this box set as a whole with a 7.1 out of 10, as shown on the graph, at par with many sets and seeming to follow the trend of box sets post Old Friends. Thank you everybody so much for watching this video. I've been away for a while, but I'm hoping to finally start releasing videos more frequently. Maybe not weekly like I used to, but certainly more than a few months in between each video. Please like the video if you liked it, comment down below if you wish and want to tell me something that you think I should review, and hit the subscribe button, ring the notification bell if you want to know every single time that I make an upload. Once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!
Toast. A little piece of toast. Because there's so much to choose from. There's brown bread, white bread, all sorts of wholemeal bread. It comes in funny packages with writing on the